Okay, the meeting is now live.
Thank you, Janine. Anybody know where we are in terms of a quorum?
We have 9, I believe. Jack is on.
Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay, well, given the fact we've got to get through this ethics training, we're going to go ahead and begin. Calling to order the Cuyahoga County Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, December the 8th. Clerk, please call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Schwan,
Here.
Ms. Conwell,
Present.
Mr. Jones,
Here.
Ms. Brown, Ms. Stevens, Ms. Simon, Ms. Baker,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Tuma,
Here.
Mr. Gallagher,
Here.
and Council President Brady.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there any public comment today?
No public comment was submitted.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're going to go to item 5. We're going to have Kathy Jackson, the HR training manager, is going to facilitate an ethics training for our members. We will not be able to sign the form in the usual way as we have over the years. I'm going to take care of that through Mr. Nanny. So is Ms. Jackson here?
I am here.
All right, good to see you.
Good to see you all again.
So let's get started.
All right. The video is only is only 11 minutes, so I kept it very brief for you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Griffin, Cuyahoga County Inspector General.
And I'm Delonte Spencer Thomas, Ethics and Education Counsel. And this is your 2020 ethics training.
This year, we're going to do an overview of our county ethics rules, but then we're going to go deep dive into the largest municipal fraud in American history. And we're going to talk a little bit about the fraud triangle of what makes a fraudster, how do you detect fraud, and how we in Cuyahoga County can be on the alert for such situations. And then most importantly, if you see something, how to say something. Why do we need to address fraud? Fraud is something that happens in every organization. It happens in government, it happens in private industry, it happens everywhere. It happens wherever there are human beings, wherever there's money, wherever there's human frailty that's combined with power and authority. And so one of the things that we want to do is talk about how to find fraud, how to expose it, and how to make sure that we in Cuyahoga County don't see more of it than we have in the past. We know that we've had a past history where things haven't necessarily gone the right way. We've had old ways of doing things, old rules, and old standards. Well, we've reformed our government and we've moved on to a new look and a new day. And part of this education and this program is to talk about how fraud has happened in other organizations, where we can see fraud, and how we can detect fraud so that we've turned over truly a new leaf.
Among the many changes in Cuyahoga County was the creation of a county ethics code. This applies to elected officials, employees, and board members. The code includes the following provisions. First is misuse of resources. Simply put, we should not use county resources such as vehicles, supplies, equipment, or any other property owned by Cuyahoga County for personal use. We also must refrain from using our positions or influence from those positions to benefit ourselves, relatives, or organizations in which we have an interest. Misuse of confidential information. As agents of the public, we have or will have access to confidential information. We must not disclose or misuse or inappropriately access that information. This applies even after our time with the county has concluded. Conflicts of interest. The important thing to note here is that if and when an actual or potential conflict of interest arises, you must disclose the conflict and recuse yourself from acting or participating on that matter. That includes all participation, even discussion. Please always remember to contact the Agency of Inspector General for questions about whether a conflict exists and how to appropriately recuse yourself. Nepotism. Nepotism is a 4th-degree felony in the state of Ohio. No public official or public employee may participate in the hiring, termination, promotion, demotion, or supervision of a relative as defined by the county code. Gifts are always a hot topic in government ethics law. We must refrain from accepting or soliciting gifts from individuals or entities that are doing business with the county, as well as those who are regulated by the county or otherwise interested in matters before the county. Please also reach out to the Agency of Inspector General if you have any questions about improper gifts. Secondary employment. Because we must avoid conflicts of interest or acting on conflicts of interest, it is important to disclose secondary employment to the Agency of Inspector General. This also applies to future employment as well. At some point, our time with the county will come to an end, and there are certain provisions that we want to make sure are happening so that we don't potentially act on conflicts of interest in our future jobs. And lastly, political activity. For those of us who are classified employees, we must refrain from organized political activity. If you have any questions about this, please contact the Agency of Inspector General.
So what we just heard was an overview of Cuyahoga County ethics law, and much of that is really targeted towards exposing and preventing fraud. And as part of that, it helps to understand what is it that motivates people to commit fraud. Who are the fraudsters? Why do they do it? And what pushes them to commit acts of crime against their fellow citizens? One way to think about fraud and the reason that it occurs is what's called the fraud triangle. In the fraud triangle, there are 3 factors that encourage or make fraud more likely or more successful. There are opportunity, rationalization, and pressure. Let's talk about each of those. The first is perceived pressure. And this is usually a non-shareable financial problem. It's a need or a desire or a problem that you can't talk to your friends or family about, or that you couldn't expose to the world. So sometimes that means living beyond one's means. It may mean high bills or personal debt. Healthcare is a problem for many people. It could be personal financial losses, family or peer pressure. It could just be keeping up with the brother-in-law or the sister-in-law. Sometimes it's substance abuse or addictions, including gambling. So these are the pressures that then lead to the desire or the need to commit fraud. But the second level, the second corner of the fraud triangle is opportunity. And it's perceived opportunity, which is that the person who wants to commit the fraud must believe or see a way that he can abuse his position of trust to solve his or her financial problems with a low perceived risk of getting caught. The perceived opportunity comes about because of poor internal controls, poor training, poor supervision, lack of prosecution of perpetrators, ineffective anti-fraud programs, policies, and procedures, and perhaps most commonly and most often, a weak ethical culture set by a tone at the top. The third and the last leg of the fraud triangle is rationalization. This is how the fraudster tells him or herself that it's all okay, that what they're doing is not a crime, what they're doing is not improper. And those excuses or those rationalizations are things like, well, everybody does it, or I'm underpaid, or someone else gets paid more than me, so it's okay if I get a little bit more money. Or, and this is what we see a lot, I'm making up for an expense or an hour that I didn't take before. Well, I didn't charge that expense, so now I can steal a little bit more money on this. Or I didn't charge that hour of work, so now I can exaggerate my time bills on another. Those are all rationalizations that form part of the fraud triangle. And as we go into more specific examples of fraud, we're going to talk about how each of these 3 legs to the triangle plays into a particular type of fraud.
In 86% of cases, fraudsters displayed at least one of the behavioral red flags. The 5 most common red flags were 35% of fraudsters were living beyond their means. 26% experienced financial difficulties. 22% of fraudsters had an unusually close association with vendors, contractors, customers, clients. 19% exhibited control issues. They were unwilling to share duties. 18% had wheeler dealer attitudes, in that they're the ones who always try to get you to buy whatever it is that they're selling. So as we think about the profile of a fraudster, it's important to note that the fraudster does not always look how you might think they might look. Only 5% of perpetrators had a prior fraud conviction. So it's not necessarily those who have or past criminal activity or have been convicted or otherwise arrested. It are those who are squeaky clean are also capable of committing fraud.
So as we think about fraud against municipal governments, against county governments, and against Cuyahoga County governments, one of the most important aspects of the fraud triangle is the perception of opportunity, is the belief by fraudsters that he or she won't get caught. And that's where you come in. The most important aspect is for the fraudster to understand that he or she is going to get caught and it will be reported. And as we think about detecting fraud, your reporting and your role is the most important piece. In a survey of how occupational fraud is initially detected by government agencies, the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners found overwhelmingly it's about tips. It's about you. It's about seeing something and saying something. Internal audit does its job as well, but only 15%. Audit can't find anything. We rely on you. Management reviews, external audits, notification by law enforcement or others, those all play a role. But the most important person is the one who sees something and says something. And so what we're asking you to do as part of this annual ethics training is if you see something, say something. Where do those tips come from? The tips come from, most importantly, from employees. Over 54% come from employees who see a coworker, a supervisor, a subordinate doing something that maybe just doesn't quite sound right. 17% are anonymous. We have anonymous tip lines that we're going to talk about later. And 15% come from customers or from the general public. But again, what it says is it's the people who know the most, which is you and other county employees, who are the most important. So if you see something, say something. So at the Agency of Inspector General, we want to make it as easy as possible for you to say something once you've seen something. You can stop us in the hallways. You can send us a letter. You can send us a raven. You can drop something off in the middle of the night. We'll take it any way you want to send it. But some of those I want to talk about in particular. Our offices are on the 6th floor of county headquarters. Come on by. We'll be there. Sometimes people will walk in, they'll just drop an envelope and walk out. That's fine. You can call us at our general number, 216-698-2101, or you can use the 24-hour ethics hotline of 216-698-2999. But we also have a report of concern feature on our website where you can submit an anonymous complaint or a tip. You can fax us a letter, 698-2218, or send a letter to Cuyahoga County Agency of Inspector General, 2079 East 9th Street, 6th floor, Cleveland, Ohio, 44115. Any way you do it, it's something that we want to say thank you to you for in advance. And I want to say something now as well, which is I want to say thank you to all of you who work hard for Cuyahoga County. Particularly during these times of COVID, you play a role that's more important than ever. One of the great things about public employees and working in Cuyahoga County is that we're helping our neighbors. And I know that every one of you are doing that as well. So I want to say thank you in advance. And I want to remind you that if you see something, say something.
All right, that completes this year's ethics requirements. Do I have any questions from anyone? See, I promised it would be brief.
Thank you very much, Kathy
You're
Jackson.
welcome. Bye-bye now.
We'll move on now. Okay. All righty. We are going to move on to the executive committee meeting. And so maybe for the last time, all the meetings of the Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meeting Laws. Under that law, council may go into executive session during a meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During the executive session, council confers outside of the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All decisions are made in public. This afternoon, the council will go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters. During this time, council members will go off screen and will return once the executive session has ended. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing collective bargaining matters and pending or imminent litigation?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Conwell and Schron. Will the clerk call the roll on the motion to go into
Actually,
executive session?
Council President Brady, it was actually Stevens.
Oh,
Stevens.
sorry. Okay, Stevenson, Schron.
Calling the roll, Mr. Schron,
Yes.
Ms. Conwell,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Brown, Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Ms. Simon,
Yes.
Ms. Baker, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Tuma,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
and Council President Brady.
Yes.
We have a quorum to go
All
into
right.
executive session.
All right, the ayes have it. We'll adjourn the meeting for executive session. And
Motion
I
carries.
believe we have to go other room.
Oh, hi, this is Janine. You all should be receiving the notice to move over now.
Janine, this is Nora. Can you hear me?
Yes, Nora.
Okay, good.
Nora, are you using the phone?
Yes, because
Line.
yes,
Okay.
that 703 line, that's my county cell phone.
Okay, I'm gonna move that one over to the executive session.
Thank you.
Mhm. Hey, Ashley, that should be everyone. Andrea, that should be everyone. So, Ashley, you can go ahead and put the sign up.
Okay.
Hi, this is Janine. Could everyone, if you're still on here, could you please make sure you're muted? Thank you.
Looks like everyone's back, Dan.
Okay, we are reconvening the council meeting and are now back on the record. Is there any miscellaneous business? Hearing none. The committee of the whole is adjourned, and we will, do we stay in this same site or do we need to leave?
There's a new
Stay right
link.
here?
No, we get out. There's a new link for the council.
New
meeting.
link?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, folks, got to go to a new link to go on to the regular committee meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.